Welcome to the Eating at a Meeting podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Stuckrath, dietary needs expert, certified meetings manager, certified food protection manager. I have searched the globe to find people and businesses who are creating safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experiences for their employees, guests, and communities. In each episode, you will find authentic conversations about how food and beverage impacts inclusion, sustainability, culture, community, health, and wellness. I know that sounds like a lot, but we're going to cover it all. Are you ready to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line? If so, let's go. I am up actually at the University of Maryland this week attending a food allergen safety summit, and I am taking a break to talk to these beautiful ladies here all about cocktails. This is the Cocktail Bandits. So Taneka and Johnny, this is in honor of Women's HERstory Month. And HERstory, yes, exactly. And I found you on the Instagram handle Black Women in Food, and I was scrolling through it, and I reached out to our friend Tanya Guerreri, and I'm like, do you know these ladies? And she's like, yes, I love them. I just love what you're doing in educating people on cocktails and making cocktails from your perspective. So, and actually that perspective is a feminine urban perspective to the spirit industry. So can you explain I know you have another fancy introduction of yourselves. So go through that and then tell us how you got to be the Cocktail Bandits.
Okay. Awesome. I'm Johnny Caldwell. And I'm Taneka Reaves. And we are the Cocktail Bandits, your curly ladies who talk cocktails daily. And we're super excited to be talking to you this afternoon, Tracy. Thank you for the invitation. Our story is 10 years in the making now.
20 years.
We talk about our beginning, inception of meeting my friend. Yes, that's been 20 years this year.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yes. Yes.
Happy Friendsversary, right?
Friendsversary, yes.
Yeah. We do something for our Friendsversary.
We met the very first day of college at the College of Charleston in 2004 and have been friends ever since then. We were both political science majors in college. And after we finished college, I went to law school, and that's when Taneka really delved deep into the food and beverage industry.
Yes, I've been in food and bev since I started working, since I was 15 years old. So I started off as someone that was cleaning up and then working the registers at food courts. And then when I got to college, Charleston is just a food and bev city.
Yeah.
We used to really enjoy Charleston together. In college, we called ourselves baby bandits then before we could drink or do anything like that. And then when we finished school, Johnny went to law school and I got into the food and bev, the bar scene. I was old enough to bartend. And Johnny literally would support me at every bar I worked at. She would just come in, getting some reprieve from law school, right, but also much needed counsel on how the drinks tasted. We actually explored cocktails and flavors and everything together. So that was great.
Very cool. And then what brought you to the Cocktail Bandits? And tell people what you do with the Cocktail Bandits.
All right. Again, it was so many different components that came together for us to create Cocktail Bandits. Like I said, I would go to the bar and I would see what she was doing. And I got more of appreciation for the craft that went into cocktail making. We give so much attention to our chefs and how they put together a dish or a meal. But our bartenders do the very same thing, just in a glass. I started to really think about that, think about my pastimes and what I was doing with my leisure time. And when I graduated, I couldn't find any work as a lawyer. I was either overqualified or underexperienced. So It was really discouraging to come out of law school with all this education and all this debt and not be able to get a job to be able to pay for all of that stuff.
Yeah. And on my side, it was the same thing, but just in the food and bev space. I wanted to learn more about craft cocktail making. And I went to the bars downtown, the prestige bars. And 10 years ago, the climate was different. We had naturally did our hair, we had our hairs natural with froze. And people weren't used to seeing that front of house. People weren't really used to seeing women front of house anyway, Black women in food and bev in Charleston, because it's so tied to the enslaved times, and people of color look at that space as servitude. So it was really challenging for us to find work, but we realized that this could be an opportunity instead of an obstacle. And social media was booming. We saw the fashion girls, we saw the foodies, we saw the chef highlights, and we were like, we want to do that, but we want to do that with cocktails. So that is how Cocktail Bandits really grew into something.
And then the name.
Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to talk about the name. We were at this club in Charleston called a Cocktail Club. It's a bar. It's one of the first craft cocktail bars in Charleston.
Shout out the Cocktail Club.
Yes, they're amazing. And we just went out for one drink. We said we're going to have just one bapper tonight. And then friends started hitting us up and being like, where y'all at? And they came out and they were ordering us drinks and shots and punch bowls. And by the end of the night, we just had a table full of different glassware. We're like the bandits of cocktails. Like we came in here, got these cocktails, and then we just dashed out. The name stuck, and we just been, was a thing about imposter syndrome too. Cause at first we were like, we call ourselves the Cocktail Bandits. We do this thing. It's called the Cocktail Bandits. And then one day we're like, you know what? We are the Cocktail Bandits. This is what we are, living this lifestyle. We are out here educating ourselves in this industry. This is who we are. And once we start to embrace that as being who we are, things just like really took off.
And we were really intentional about the name too. We wanted it to be inclusive. We didn't want that people were like, that's automatically women. Right. That's automatically. So we thought about having a name that if we ever wanted to bring men on, that they could be Cocktail Bandits too. So we thought about that from the very beginning, because being Black women, you always have to think about inclusivity. Yeah. And we've just always thought about the bottom line so that no one feels excluded.
That's awesome. And it's a really important factor. And I think some of the stuff that you've been educating on too is the feminine perspective and feminine urban perspective of cocktail drinking. I don't drink anymore. And I do have a question for you about the non-alcoholic stuff. And I know you've done some videos on that, but I think way back when, and I'm thinking of John Hamm and that television show from when it's like the Mad Men, yeah, just drinking the bourbons on ice, etc. But so talk about where's the power in that feminine urban perspective and the I say the power meaning the financial opportunities that it provides potentially for bars to look at that perspective.
Oh, again, these questions are so great, Tracy, that you asked. We're actually taking some of your questions and we're going to use them when we do interviews. They're so good. This, again, is a tenfold answer from us. The feminine perspective is so important because women have an amazing palate. So when we smell things, when we taste things, we get a whole different experience than males experience. So we were like, why are women not more involved in the cocktail making process? Why are women not deemed as experts in this field? When you look at the iconic people who you associate with drinks, just like you said with John Hamm, you look at the Dos Equis guy, he's debonair and he has his salt pepper beard. There was no female version of that. Yeah. There was no idea, like example of what a woman in a bar should be. Even when we first started Cocktail Bandits, we would have photos with us drinking, like actually taking a sip from the glass. People were like, don't do that.
That's not ladylike.
It's not ladylike. What? Yeah. You should not be doing that. We got critiqued by people all the time who were saying that wasn't something that we should be doing. So we said, we're going to embrace that. We have a hashtag, Gentle Lady Sips, because gentle ladies, like gentlemen, can have sips of beverages as well. Purposefully take photos with drinks in our hands or sipping them, and also sharing images of other women doing the same thing.
And to piggyback off the journey with that, women are buying the alcohol. They're buying them for the parties. They're buying them for the fundraisers. They're the ones that's purchasing the booze, and they're educated. So we really wanted to cater to that group of people because that buying power is important, and we need to buy. We need to know exactly what we're buying and we're putting in our bodies and what we're using to celebrate milestones and things like that.
Mm-hmm. And in every other category, women are discerning. We don't go into the store and buy any red shoe. We want to get the Louboutins with the red bottoms. So be that particular about your spirit purchase as well. When you go to the bar, liquor store, ask them you want your cognac, you want it to be aged, you want it to come from France. Be particular about your order. Be particular about what you are imbibing, because it's going to affect your overall experience.
Yes.
Wow. I didn't think about, like, you just go in and buy Tito's, right? Or you go in and buy, and there's like how many different vodkas are out there, and then how many different
thousands.
Yeah. And bourbon.
Eat all different bases.
Yeah. There's one that's potato out of Idaho with an elderberry flavor in it. When I did drink, I really liked that one. I don't remember the brand.
That's so good.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the things that and I'm trying to find my question about this, when you're doing your class, because you teach classes on this, right? But so you're teaching them how to, because I know there's random bourbon tastings and whatever. So what kind of flair are you bringing to it? And I saw you did a party for a bachelorette party, a cocktail making class for that. What are the things that you're teaching? Like you just said, the flavors of this, the cognac, the age. What do you think is really important for people to understand about instead of just going, oh, I'm going to go buy, my mom buys Jim Beam, right?
Okay.
Classic. And she doesn't think she doesn't think she should be drinking Angel's Envy or any of those things. She's just like, I'm not that high level, but there's a whole different flavor to that. And so tell us about what you teach about that and what we should know about different cocktails.
From the very beginning, we started with tequila. Tequila was our spirit of choice in the beginning. We tried over 600 tequilas.
What?
Yes. It's research, Tracy. So we would try all these tequilas, and none of our friends were tequila drinkers at this time. So we introduced everyone with tequila, and now all of our friends are tequila drinkers. They call us to ask us about the different expression types. They call us, tell us about the different flavors. Even if they have a bottle that they don't think we've tried, they'll send us pictures.
Yeah.
And we realize that people want to be educated and want to be in the loop about these kind of things. Mm-hmm. So we took that same template with tequila and brought it into the bourbon space, the cognac space, the vodka space. That way people can taste different things and not feel intimidated by asking questions or trying something new. It's got introductory thing. And then when they realize that the tequila is not like the Cuervos, no offense to Cuervos, from back in the day, or there are things that's going to get you blackout drunk from like our college nostalgia, they can try different things and be exposed to different things. So we try to excite all senses. We try to have you taste things, smell things, and also bring a cultural component so you feel something when you're actually drinking this. And I think that's what really got people wanting to learn the nuances about spirits.
That's so cool. And when you feel, it's not necessarily feeling the drunkenness of it. It's just feeling the vibe that it's giving, the flavor, that the flavor and all of that stuff.
That's right. Like if you are more educated on the history and the making of the process, that you'll appreciate it more. When you realize that it took 8 to 10 years to grow the agave, and then another 2 to 3 years of it being sitting in that barrel aging to get all that color and flavor and aromatics. You're not going to just shoot that and slam that down. You're going to sip that and appreciate that. You're going to want to pair that with a dish. You're going to want to be in a beautiful setting with candles and lights and music and vibes. We've had the benefit of going to Mexico several times. We go almost every year since we went with Patron back in 2016. And every time we go, we have a deeper appreciation for the people that make it, the culture around it, the food, the history, people that are preserving all of that. And we want to show people that it's so much more than liquor. It's all about the lifestyle.
Yes. That is so cool. Because it is, and there's a method to the madness on each one of those brands and how they do it and how they infuse it and whatever. And I think that's really fascinating. Yeah. Instead of just buying that big 32 ounce jug or the gallon of vodka and downing it, putting it in your hunch punch, right? That's not the point. Okay, because you mentioned tasting. So you mentioned, or I saw online that you just did a rice and roots event. And I want to know more about that because you were talking about the history of rice and then you were pairing rice dishes with different spirits. Oh, please tell me more.
Yes. That was really a labor of love. We are both Southern ladies. We're both from South Carolina, and rice culture is so big in our homes, in our community. Rice is just the staple. Even when we were younger, when we didn't have a lot of money, rice can really stretch and really create meals. You can do a one dish meal with some meat and some rice, or veggies and rice. So we really grew up like that.
Yeah.
And we actually saw an event in Atlanta that was happening with rice, and we were excited. So I actually attended the event, and it wasn't anything that I imagined it would be. So, you know what? We're going to adopt the concept, but we're going to do it with what we deem a rice event should be. And in South Carolina, there are different rice cultures everywhere. In Charleston, the red rice culture. Where I'm from is a yellow rice culture. So we wanted to bring these things together and then also talk about the African connection and the Asian connection because we all love rice. So we thought about the drinks first because we're beverage ladies. And we got sparkling wine, shout out to Mio. And then we also got some rice spirits. So we got a local rice spirit from Bluffton, South Carolina. That was a Carolina Gold rice whiskey. And then we also worked with this other company who has a rice wine as well. And then some historic spirits to pair with the different rice dishes that we had.
And we also... Oh, sorry, Tracy, because there were so many parts of it that we wanted to make sure that people got all the connections.
Yeah.
We also tied in the rum, because rum has such a connection to Charleston, especially rums coming from the Spice Islands like Barbados. People were first coming from Barbados to Charleston when it was first being settled. So the first and former slave Africans that were coming into this country were coming via Barbados. And they brought so much of that spice, culture, cinnamon, cardamom, ginger, all of those ingredients that we infuse in our rice dishes and also in our beverages. The rum plays really nice with rice. We had a rice flight. And then you think about flights being a flight of drinks, but we had a flight of rice. So you can have all the different varieties of jollof rice from Senegal. Our good friend Bintu, who has a restaurant here in Charleston, made a African style rice to pair along with the chicken bog from upstate South Carolina that Taneka's mom made.
My mom made some rice for the event as well.
Oh, cool.
Yes. And we also had a shrimp and oyster perlot, not perlou. We were corrected several times. A shrimp and okra perlou, because it's perlou, not perlot.
Yeah.
And then we also had
a red rice
dish as well to represent Charleston. And while we wanted to have some home chefs be involved as well, whenever we are asked, where can we get the best food at in Charleston? I always think about home.
Yeah.
I always think about something that my grandmother would have made or something that my mom makes. And we can't always invite people into our home to have a homemade meal. So to be able to bring that to our audience, for them to have something that was made with love and made in the way that we enjoy it at home was really, a good mixture between what you would get from a restaurant and what you get from a home style community type event.
And that was our good friend's mom that gave us the red rice. And she was so proud to have her rice featured. And so was my mom. Mm-hmm. She was really excited to have her rice featured, and people loved their rice. Like, I'm going to say it was
I'll say it was a favorite. It was one of my favorites. We've also been working with a sake company that's based in Japan for over a year now. So we wanted to have them be involved as well. So we had the sparkling rice wine that we were serving. We also had sushi, because Asia has a huge connection to rice as well. So we wanted to be honest about the story and really incorporate all the communities that value what rice brings and how it has sustained those cultures.
And what was so awesome about sushi was that it was a Black woman that was making the sushi.
Yeah.
So we brought all of those components together, show the diversity of our cultures, the diversity of how we're all sharing the story. And then history is inclusive. And that's really our biggest push, is that everything is inclusive. Even the ugly stuff, it's still American history. It's still all of our history.
Right. That's amazing. I need to introduce you to some women from last year. They created the Women's Craft Fermentation Alliance, and it fascinated me as well. But they found a female sake maker, so that you need to meet them so you can find out who that is. It's typically a male job. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So I had Tiffany Barrier on the show before, and I love her story about telling different stories of Black history with the cocktails that she makes. But you also do the same kind of thing in telling the history. What's the history of people of color with cocktails, and whether it's in spirits in general? Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, people of color have always been involved in spirits making and production making. In particular, in Charleston, a lot of enslaved used to work with the Germans, because Germans weren't considered white back then. So the Germans used to work with the enslaved to really form communities around beer culture, around spirit making culture. And they used to do their own events together until the Europeans felt some type of way about Germans and Blacks being together, and they separated them. So that's just the history in Charleston. South as a whole, people have been producing beverages for a long time. We know people, and both of our families were bootleggers. So they both produced their own liquor, and my family even had their own little store.
Yeah.
Where they would sell their own little shots of liquor for 50 cents and involved. But it's so multifaceted, because you think about the making of it and the survival and all of that when you're producing the spirits, but also we're very religious in our culture. So no one wants to talk about the spirits, or they don't want to be empowered by the spirits. It's looked at as, we've been in this industry for a long time, but like I say in our book, we don't pass down our stories written down. We pass them down orally. So we don't have the documentation to show the people were involved. But we've been studying spirits not only in America, but in Africa as well. And they have been producing spirits and beers since the beginning. And these stories just haven't come out yet. So with one book at a time, with one history lesson at a time, we're teaching people that we've been involved. We've just not written the things down, or they haven't kept the stories.
And I think when you launched the book, and I'm going to put a link here in the comments for your book, but you were the first.
Go ahead and say it, Tracy.
The first book about cocktails written by people of color. Is that right?
Yes, women.
No. Okay.
Because Tom Balla wrote a cocktail book called The Ideal Bartender way back in 1917.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, 1917. He wrote the book, and he was a big bartender. He came up with the big julep. We even learned here there was a man named Nat Fuller who brought the champagne culture to banquets. And he was an enslaved African here in Charleston. And he worked for the higher ups, and they taught him French cuisine. He traveled. He knew how to purvey meats. And he came up with his own cocktails as well. So these stories, they're coming out now, but we need to take them and highlight them to a higher level.
And okay, the book is called Holy Spirits, Charleston Culture Through Cocktails.
We have one. We're about to bring it on the screen.
You are?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, can we give one away?
Yeah.
So the first person who writes a comment here, we got 7 people watching us here. So the first person who comments or asks the question of Taneka and Johnny gets a copy of that signed book.
That's right. That's right.
And you need to follow them on Instagram as well. Yeah.
We had such a difficult time finding photographs, finding names, finding locations of people. You go to plantations in Charleston and they have a register of all the enslaved because they were worth value to them. So they had some record because each person could be sold for up to $1,000, but they didn't have any real descriptions that gave them any humanity. So when we're trying to write about these people and give them a backstory, give them some details to what they were contributing, we couldn't find these details. We really want to encourage people in our community to write down their stories, talk to your elders, get those recipes, get those stories about when they were bootlegging or rum running or whatever they were doing, get those stories written down, because once the elders pass on, those stories pass on with them. And we can't really show our connection that we always had a connection to spirits.
Right.
We always had a connection to food waste, not just in the South, but all over this country. I'm going to go back again and talk about that women were huge when it came to the brewing process. When they were first bringing over enslaved Africans, they were only bringing over men because they wanted men to be laborers because they were strong. But they realized that it was the women who knew how to cultivate and grow rice. And it was the women who knew how to brew the beer that they made from the rice. Mm-hmm. So they had to start going to South Africa, to Western Africa, actually kidnapping women to be slaves to bring over to the States, because they know the value that women brought, not only to bear children, but also to do that work that the men were not equipped to do.
Right.
Well, we brought here to do the brewing and the growing of the rice.
And I also want to say that after Prohibition really stunted the culture in African Americans as far as spirits and things like that. And we went into bootlegging, of course. But for it to be 101 years for a person of color to come out with another cocktail book speaks volumes. And then Shannon Mustafer come out with the book. We've had Black Mixolets come out with their books. And there are other people that are coming out with cocktail books as we speak, which is exciting. But we did not even want to say that we were the first Black women to come out with a book because we couldn't believe it. It took us 6 months to really lean into that and say, oh, we happen to be the first Black women to write a cocktail book. We know that we were doing that when we first did the book. We just thought that we were going to be able to put our blog in book form. But I started doing research trying to find other Black women that we could at least get some kind of guidance from. And we could not find any. And wow. It's like, we literally are the first Black people to come out with a cocktail book after Tom Bach.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is insane. Okay. So Nancy Sutter Burns is the first person to comment. And actually her first comment was, are we going to talk about mocktails too? Which we won't.
Yes.
Yeah. But she just said maybe our relatives should have been rum running.
You know what? NASCAR was created because of moonshiners. They were racing. What? That's right. They were racing across state lines with the moonshine when it was illegal to do.
And they souped their cars up so they can
run the police.
And what Dukes of Hazzard? That's what they were doing. Actually. Huh?
Those things are based off of real stories. That's based off.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so mind-boggling.
Has been a part of so many different things. That's why I would say it's not just the liquor, it's the lifestyle that's created based off of that.
Okay, so since Nancy asked that question, let's talk about mocktails or non-alcoholic spirits. And I saw a couple of your videos that you did that. So you're talking about this feminine power culture around spirits and things. How are we doing that? And I've had a lot of interviews about non-alcoholic adult beverages on the shows, and I love the fact that you are doing alcoholic version beverages, but I also think you promote the non-alcoholic versions of that. So talk about that.
We just did a mocktail crawl in January, and I don't think anyone's ever done a mocktail bar crawl.
No. You need to invite me next time.
We will invite you, Tracy, because it sold out. And it was our most diverse crawl. We had all age groups. We had a pregnant woman, which we loved. We took so many pictures of her. And she was double-fisting their mocktails. So it showed us that we are neglecting a market as far as our promotions. Every January and every September, I go dry. So I don't drink any alcoholic beverages, just to reset and just to explore this world. Because now after COVID, 33% of Americans are not drinking alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to cater to that group of people. And all of these distribution companies now are selling some type of non-alcoholic spirit. And it takes as much time to make these spirits as it does to make an alcoholic spirit. So you have to appreciate the nuances of flavor. It is just like eating a really good meal. It is just like drinking a crafted beverage. And we're getting tended to, other than a Shirley Temple full of sugar and full of sweet. And they're being
the one I had last night was exactly that.
And they're being so intentional now with the cocktail spirits that they have zero sugar. Yeah. A lot of them have zero calories. So you can mix them, add a little bit of sugar to it, but it's not a fully sugar cup. Mm-hmm. And this is what you have to drink all night. It doesn't have to be just with cocktails. You can drink a mocktail between cocktails. Yeah. Keep your night going. But we are huge components of every beverage, every sippable thing we want to talk about it, alcoholic or unalcoholic. And we're really excited about this non-alcoholic space that's happening.
And Carlos, who runs the Adult Non-Alcoholic Beverage Association, he was on in with me in January, and he said, I think it was like 65% of people who are buying the non-alcoholic beverages are people like you, Taneka, who are not drinking during specific times of year or on a regular, they're just changing back and forth. And I think that's huge because that actually says your money's going to be even higher if you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too I lost my train of thought because I really wanted to say something. But I think too in that space, if people are going to spend money on a spirit, they are the people that won't talk trash about spending $30 on a non-alcoholic spirit. Most people who don't drink don't even see the point of spending $35 on a non-alcoholic spirit. But if you do drink and you spend $40 anyway on a spirited beverage, then you'll spend that. The same with the cocktails. It takes as much labor to make that non-alcoholic cocktail. So it's going to still be $10 or more. And it justifies it when you're already paying that number for a drink.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. I've never paid $40 for one. I think the most I've paid for one is $15.
They have some really exclusive ones now, Tracy.
Really? Wow.
That you're drinking something alcoholic, but we have to stop associating nuanced flavor with booze.
Yeah. There's so many ranges of flavors that you can create without alcohol. There's so many fruits, spices, herbs and they're getting really creative. And women are leading in this industry as well. The majority of the brands that are coming out that are NA are led by women. And they're married in their branding. They're very intentional about their flavor profiles and their packaging and their marketing. Very smart, very chic, very mass appeal. And I think a female's mind is going to be able to do that. We're going to be very inclusive in that. Even with our bar crawl, people think about DEI as being a black and white thing, but we wanted to include people who were not drinking, who are abstaining from alcohol, and that as a form of inclusion as well. We want people to, oh man, I love the Cocktail Bandits, but none of their events, all their events are alcohol based.
Yeah.
And that's just not the case. We always have a mocktail available at every single event that we do. The dry crawl was just exclusively mocktails, but that is a way for us to be inclusive and invite people. We had an 18-year-old who wanted to attend a mocktail crawl with us, and that she could because we weren't serving any alcohol.
Yeah. So exactly.
Inclusive to different age ranges as well. And her grandmother was the one who wanted her to come out with her.
Yeah, it was us. And her grandmother ended up coming anyway, and it was amazing. They had her and her husband had so much fun. They were asking questions. They wanted to go like for round 2 on certain spots, and I gave it to them too because I showed up. But people had so much fun, and for me, it was our most memorable one because we didn't drink. So we remembered everything from that event. And the bartenders were so into it. They were so excited to be a part of it. Yeah. And people have since then gone back to these bars and these restaurants to try more of their non-alcoholic offerings.
And bought the product. Literally, somebody in our inbox right now is like, where can I get the Amethyst Spirit? I want to make the exact same cocktail I had at y'all's party for a wedding. For a wedding.
Oh.
Yeah. And you just never know who you're touching because they're looking for these things. They're looking and they need someone to educate them where they feel comfortable asking questions and not feeling like, oh, why would I ask these cocktail girls about an NA situation or a mocktail? No.
Everybody. Yes. And so many people say they don't drink, but if you did not drink, you would die. You may not drink alcoholic products, but we all drink. So showing people that there's a non-spirited thing that you can drink can still include you and show you that, hey, we still drink water, we drink tea, we drink coffee, we drink sodas and all these other poisonous things. But we need to drink more than we need to eat to survive.
That's true, because we need the fluids in our body to keep everything flushing and moving around. Yeah. Not that we're talking about digest here. But okay, so I saw it interesting because I saw on your website that you spoke at the African American Tourism Conference. And this show is really focused on eating at a meeting or eating at events and things like that. So can you speak about how that came about and what you shared with that audience about getting people to their towns, to their cities about drinking? How did that come about? And I think the quote that I saw was, dispel common misconceptions surrounding the African-American beverage consumer.
Oh, I love that. That's a good one that you found. I said, we need to bring that quote back out. That's how it started our Cocktail Bandit journey. We would go to different bars and meet the different bartenders. That's how we got to know about the industry, to figure out where the gaps were, where we can fit ourselves in. We would literally go to all the bars in Charleston and talk to the bartenders, talk to the brand ambassadors, and that's how we got to really understand the business of being in hospitality. So when we went to the African American Tourism Conference, we wanted to educate them on ways that they could partner with bars and restaurants to be able to launch their businesses, to be able to have networking events, to be able to do partnerships with them for happy hours for their employees, what have you. We also wanted to be educating them on how they can use social media as a huge marketing tool. When we first started Cocktail, we didn't have any money, and Instagram was a tool. It was active. The algorithm was pumping us out everywhere. And at that point in 2013, 2014, a lot of the companies we were working with didn't even have an Instagram account at that point. So we had to educate them on the importance of Instagram and then how they needed to pay us to make content for their Instagram account. This is before Instagram influencer or social media was really a term that they were using. We were having to explain how these platforms work to them. They were barely even on Facebook. So we were trying to introduce to the African American Tourism Council the new form of marketing. And this is pre-pandemic. Yes. So we were doing these interviews and stuff and active on social media before the world shut down, and we all had to go to social media.
Yeah.
So when that happened, we got so much work at that time because we were already on the platform. We already had a following that was engaging us for our content, and when we were going live at events. So we're trying to encourage them to be ahead of the game and using social media as a huge tool. We see now how big TikTok is now a major point that we're talking about in Congress in the United States. You would have never thought that a social media platform would have that much power in our community, but it does. Yes. And so that was what we were trying to show at that conference. And in all of our conferences since then, we talk about the power of social media and how you as an individual can build your own platform, build your own brand using those platforms.
And also teaching inclusivity, increasing profits. Yeah, we're in a capitalist society. So people really want to talk about ROI. People really want to talk about how this is making money. Mm-hmm. And on all levels, when you include more people, especially the lowest common denominators, you have more money coming in. So with us as people of color, especially in the South, we get a little apprehensive about going into different establishments or even getting mentorship or education from different brands and different companies. And we need to dispel those fears because nobody has it all together. We're all trying to figure it out. And there's something about your perspective that can add value to that company as well. So don't feel intimidated by that. There's something missing and you probably have that key.
That is so true because it's bringing that different perspective in. And even where I am now, I mean, I was on a panel with the global director of food safety and from Marriott and somebody from training but talking to a large contingency of schools, colleges that serve food and beverage. But I'm here, you all produce events as well. And how does what's that perspective of that event? So you have to really think through things in a variety of different ways because you might find a new market that you didn't even know existed, i.e. mocktails, cocktail, non-alcoholic adult beverages, and that you could make money at. Yeah.
And it increases standard. I feel like downtown with all the fine dining, a lot of people that were at that conference had not been to a lot of the bars and restaurants downtown. So they're not even seeing what they could possibly aim towards or what they could add to and modify and make it work for them because we're seeing limited scope of businesses. So sometimes you have to go do something completely different, completely out of your comfort zone on all levels. White, black, Asian, tall, short, big breasted, small, all these things matter. Even in bars, the bars are usually built by men, for men. Then you think about bus size of women moving behind those bars and knocking things over. And it's because it's a man's perspective. We are the perspective that can make us better and make us more money and make us more open-minded.
Wow. And that just reminded me of just adding the hooks underneath the bar when you're sitting there as a guest to hang your purse. Exactly. And you always go and look for them now and we expect them, but some people still haven't gotten on that bandwagon. Okay. So Women's History Month. Because you mentioned that you mentioned that your mom had a dish in your rice and roots thing. What words of wisdom have the women in your life, your mother, your grandmothers, shared with you to help you continue doing what you're doing?
I will. My mother is a huge champion of us now.
Okay.
When we first started, she was very confused about why I finished law school and decided that I was going to be in the bar community and do events and make cocktails. She was very confused about this. She did not understand what was going on. But over the years, and when she saw what we were actually producing and articles getting written up about us and different things that we were doing, she came aboard. And in our first business venture, she was a huge part of that. Movers and Shakers Mix was what our first business venture that we started. Was a networking group, and Cocktail Bandits grew out of that. So she is a huge proponent of us now. She was just working our event a couple weeks ago at the door, and she'll tell everybody who listens, yeah, they always got me working. They always got me out here. She travels with us and she goes to all the events. She loves to pass the bag. She's reaping the benefits now and made me more proud.
That's awesome.
And for me, my mom, she had me very young. So she's always pretty much let me express myself, do my own thing. She's always supported everything that I've done. So I think that was the bravery for me even jumping out on and doing this was because my mom was super supportive of anything that I've done. And she was always just like, you do your best. I support you. But now my mother is starting her own business and she told me she would never start her business. And I told her, I said, I'm super proud of you for starting your own business. And she said, we have to learn from our children sometime. And
that makes me cry.
It really moved me. And she just tells me all the time how she's so proud of me and Johnny and how we've inspired her to think bigger and to want more. So it teared me up a little bit this morning. So I'm really glad that you asked that question.
Oh, that's such a great, because you hear from moms that we learn from our kids and whatever. And at the age, quote unquote, that she is, I don't know how old she is, but that you also proves that you can still learn at whatever age you are.
Yeah.
Right? Not just in elementary school or college or whatever. You can learn when you're in your 70s and 80s and such. And I don't think your mom's that old, but who knows?
My granny is almost 80, and my granny, she always tells me that she's proud and to just, you'll never get these years back, so live them up. So have fun, fail, but you'll succeed.
Yeah. Okay, so on that note, jumping from women, and one of the reasons you started this is because you didn't see people like you in this industry. So what has been important to you as a woman and actually as a Black woman in the food and beverage, in the beverage industry?
I must say I'm still disappointed and there's still work to be done. We do these cocktail crawls where we intentionally highlight different demographics in our community. The Black bartender highlight is consistently our hardest demographic to pull. We live in a city where there's over 400 different bars and restaurants within an 8-mile radius.
Oh, wow.
And 4 Black bartenders who will work in front of house was such a challenge. We've done them 3 times so far. So we've tapped not even 15 because
sometimes we recycle with bartenders.
We have to keep on going back to the same group of people because I don't know if it is people not feeling that they are employable in these spaces, so they're not even going to apply, or if these places are not doing enough outreach to be able to market their availability to people who are people of color who are maybe not frequently downtown in these spaces. Maybe it's a partnership of both, but there's still culture around craft cocktails. It can be still very intimidating to this day. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. It's discouraging to see so many businesses cut back on their DEI initiatives, especially following the change of affirmative action in our country. I think that was a step backwards. I think it's making our job of being a more inclusive community more difficult for us at our level that we're working at. So as much as we've done in the last 10 years about making the awareness about the lack of diversity and the homogeny in so many different markets, it still hasn't created the change that we want to see in our community. Mm-hmm. There's still so much more work that we need to do.
Yep. Yeah. I agree. And even like in my world of food allergies and dietary restrictions and just inclusive food and beverage, there's people are like still roll their eyes at, oh, you can't eat that? What? Or you want to drink that? And so I commend the two of you for doing what you're doing because I think it's so valuable to open up the different perspectives. And I was joking with somebody the other day, the NBC phrase, the more is so, just those 4 words are so valuable.
Yeah, I think, especially when we talk about people going into different neighborhoods in the gentrification space, we've witnessed it just seeing Charleston downtown transform. These communities of color and these restaurants or bars will come into the community and they don't try to gauge anyone inside the community. They're trying to gauge people that they know, that they communicate with. And that's why I said culture is important. How you communicate with Black people is not the same as how you communicate with white people. Our inflections, our mannerisms, certain things that we say, someone might think that we're having an argument and we're laughing and joking. It's all about communication and learning the culture. In Charleston, we've always had to fit in with white culture. So we know that culture front and back, but those people don't know our culture. So when we're going into places, are they making the bartenders feel comfortable? Are they making the bartenders feel included? Are they speaking over their heads? Are they expecting certain things that's not really in our culture because we don't talk like that or we don't do things like that in that space? And I feel like once we realize that we know white culture and we understand it and that it's a job now trying to figure out different cultures in the white spaces, I think that we'll get more inclusion because I think that sometimes people that have been doing things for so long think that they've been doing it correctly. And just because you've been doing that a long time doesn't mean that it can't be improved.
That's such a good point. Can I please add to that?
Yeah.
In Charleston, there is a huge community of Gullah Geechee people. I am a descendant. I'm Gullah Geechee, and we speak Geechee. So there are times when people are in the kitchen and they're talking amongst themselves in restaurants and bars where it may sound like a foreign language, even though it's based off of English. There's some African dialect in there as well. But their bosses or chefs that come in from New York, they're coming in from LA. They're not familiar with Geechee. They're thinking that someone is cussing them out or speaking nasty about them. And they're just speaking the way that they speak at home. These owners don't make any effort to understand Geechee or the Geechee culture, but they will serve dishes that are based off of Gullah Geechee traditions.
Yeah.
So you want to profit off of our community without even educating yourself on the individuals who work with you to create those dishes.
Yeah.
I'll never forget an article written about the unnamed line cook trying to highlight these people who make restaurants run, and they're mostly Black men. And these men mostly don't have any culinary training other than what they learn on the line.
Or learn from their mom.
Or learn from their mom, from their home kitchens. But they still deserve a level of respect for the aspect that they're bringing to the community and making the restaurant run. That's based off their Gullah culture. Mm-hmm. So I really want to encourage restaurant owners and people who run these hospitality groups that when they come into an area, that they really educate themselves on the community that they are building their restaurant in. You're going to need those people to help you. So the mission was offer them some humanity and understand the way that they are communicating.
I'm going to add one more thing.
Yeah, please.
We went to Mexico several times, and we've had the privilege of staying in some high-end resorts, but we've also stayed amongst the people. And we've had so many people tell us how they're disgusted by a lot of these celebrities who are basically taking their culture or talking about tequila they can't even say the names. They can't say Blanco. They can't say Reposado. They can't say Añejo.
Humidor.
They can't say these words, and you're profiting off of their spirit. This is a very spiritual thing that they do in Mexico. And it's not just a black and white thing. We say this because we are Black, white man, so we're into that intersectionality. But there are different cultures that we take from and that we don't give them homage or we don't respect them. And we wonder why they're upset or we wonder why they don't want anything to do with us. It's because we take what we want, but we don't learn anything from them to add to the culture.
That's amazing. Here on this tour yesterday, because I'm at the University of Maryland, they just built a new dining hall, and it's built on native land, and they have incorporated that into the dining hall. And the members of the Indian tribe that's here, they actually consult with them on a monthly basis, and they actually have a whole station that they're serving that food. And throughout the entire dining hall, there's history of that culture here. We were all taking pictures of every single thing that they had done around it, because they're like, this is where we came from and we have to honor it. So I commend you both on that too, because it really is, we need to think about where we're coming from, where we're having our meetings, who's been there and done that. So
it does help everybody involved. Mm-hmm. I think it helps everybody become better. So it's not to shun anyone for what they've been used to or what they've done in their life, because we've all done things that we're used to and we've had to learn to become better. But I want, especially white culture in America, to understand that everything has been white culture. Everything has been white culture in America. That's what we have been based off of. Everything else has been snatched away. We have been taught to follow a mold. We have been taught to follow a standard. But what about things that we want to add? What about things that we want to do to make things better? And it makes everyone better in return. It's not an attack, but it is an invitation to make us all better.
Right. Yep. It's so true. Yep. We have a huge plantation culture here in Charleston where you can go and visit plantations. People have weddings on plantations.
Yep.
And the converse to that is these same people who are having a wedding or a celebration don't talk about the historical part of those plantations and the enslavement and the brutality that took place in those establishments. So if you're going to celebrate, do that. Educate. But educate yourself. Pay homage to the people that maintain those grounds, that sacrifice their life to be able to produce the crops, to cultivate the gin, to be able to build the lifestyle, just to build a Southern culture. You have to take the bad with the good if you're going to be in our spaces.
You must have about that, Tracy, because this is a hot topic. Johnny and I, both of our families live on land that our great grandfathers purchased from their ancestors. So both of us have that history. So when people come, especially people of color, when they come to the South, they don't want any association with plantations, but we have to let people know that this is still a part of our history. It might not be your favorite part, but a lot of people, especially who moved north, who did the Great Migration and all that stuff in our communities, they are so disconnected to the Southern culture and they're so embarrassed by it. This is why so many people are not in food and bev, because they're embarrassed by the culture, but it's really empowering. It's really empowering to know that great grandfather bought our land and we still live on it. And that my family, awesome. That the Reaves community, a lot of them from other places, they're still connected to my town and our land because we still have it. So I want us all to be more open-minded to the history, Graham or not, because it doesn't take away from the beautiful Browns, because Belton is still a beautiful place. Thorn Hall is still a beautiful place. That ugly things happen, but we can talk about these things and become a better and more beautiful future.
And you can't erase history.
No.
Right? You can just learn from it and grow from it. And like you said, make things better because of what you've learned.
Yes.
Okay. 2 more questions because we're at the 58-minute mark. I'm so excited. By the way, I'm coming down for Fab in May. Is it May or June?
It's June. We'll be in town.
We'll be in Denver.
Dang it. Okay. But we're just down 95 from each other so we can see each other. Okay, so 2 final questions. The first one I'm going to ask is my standard question. What does a safe, sustainable, and inclusive food and beverage experience look like to you?
One of our events. That's easy, Tracy.
I like it.
We literally just my woman just told us that she feels the safest, that she can just be free and have so much fun at our events. And that's what it's about. Education, empowerment, and entertainment. Those are our biggest things. So when we do an event, we do it with everybody included in mind.
Awesome.
So y'all come to a Cocktail Bandits event for your safety.
Exactly. Yes. Sure. Yeah, I'll put that on there.
Yeah, put that on there. And also, you always have food. We think it's safe to be able to imbibe and have something to eat on. Whenever we travel internationally to Italy, to France, food and drink go hand in hand.
Like this.
And in America, we don't quite do that the same way. You have to purchase your food, and the drinks it's sometimes cost prohibitive. But in other cultures, it's way more integrated, and it's just a way that they socialize. Having more food incorporated, having more NA options be incorporated, having more seating available. There's so many people who go to these events who have issues with their legs, who are in wheelchairs, who we don't even think about their access into some of these buildings.
So sorry. We're in an art gallery, and sometimes the artwork.
The art is so sorry. So I guess just overall, a more inclusive community. We did an event in January where somebody was blind, and people had to describe to the lady what they look like. We had to describe what our cocktail looked like to her, and you don't even think about that because you're so used to people being seen, people having the ability to visualize what you prepared for them. But when you have to take the time to actually describe something in words, someone who can't see it, who's never seen, challenges you. So just thinking about that more, about people who are deaf, who are hard of hearing, who are blind, who are in wheelchairs, who have language barriers, more inclusive environments make people feel welcome. And when we did our Latinx crawl last year, we had a version of our flyer that was in Spanish.
Yeah.
Awesome.
One of the people who were of Latin descent to feel like they were also invited to attend the crawl too. So little small things like that make people feel more comfortable in those environments and feel like they're more welcome in those spaces.
I'm going to piggyback real quick off of that. I took a class in New Orleans. We go to this cocktail festival in New Orleans every year. And I took a class I did a tasting with a blind man. That experience changed my perspective because the things that he thinks about, like he shakes up the drinks. He shakes up, like we had different herbs and different botanicals, and he shakes them up. He smells them. He touches, like his senses, he uses them differently because he can't see the beverage. And it really brought things to my attention because I never thought about the things that people who can't see or can't hear go through when they're in a food and bev space because it's not catered to them. But yeah, that is definitely an inclusive and safe space where you're tapping into all the senses and really trying to make sure everyone is getting the same experience.
That's just phenomenal. That's such a cool story to hear. Both of those things that you said about that, because you don't really think about that at all, and needing to describe it is really important. Okay, so my final question is, how do the two of you want to be remembered in history?
Ooh, Tracy, girl. That last one. Yes, for me, because I think about this often, as game changers, someone who opened the door to possibilities. I always tell people that you don't have to get in booze, but we wanted to show that whatever you love, you can do that. You can do something that you love. We got ostracized and criticized all the time about alcohol, calling us drunks, calling us party girls, calling us all these names because that's what was associated with it. But now people are inspired. We had a DJ at our event who said that she was inspired to become a DJ because 8 years ago she saw us at an event and she never saw Black women who were young, who were doing their own thing. So that inspired her to get into DJing. And that's what it's all about. Just be one that we saw them and we saw that we can too.
Awesome. That's very cool. Thank you, ladies. Do you have anything you want to add to John? No? All right. You're good. Okay.
That's it.
That is it. That's great 2 questions to end on. You two are awesome. I love it.
Thank you for having us. We always appreciate people putting us on their platforms. We don't take
welcome. And there's their Instagram handle there, and then the website Cocktail Bandits. Check them out.
Girl.
Thank you so much for joining me for Eating at a Meeting at Women's HERstory Month, and I look forward to connecting with you all in person right down on I-95 and continuing this conversation. So
we got to move to the next mocktail crawl.
All right. Awesome.
Thanks for listening to the Eating at a Meeting podcast, where every meal matters. I'm Tracy Stuckrath, your food and beverage inclusion expert. Call me and let's get started right now on creating safe and inclusive food and beverage experiences for your customers, your employees, and your communities. Share the podcast with your friends and colleagues at our Eating at a Meeting Facebook page and on all podcast platforms. To learn more about me and receive valuable information, go to tracystuckrath.com. And if you'd like more information on how to feed engagement, nourish inclusion, and bolster your bottom line, then visit eatingatameeting.com.